All right, everybody, we are live. I assume I don't have the links up because you get used to having like 250 megabytes down in this world, and then when you travel somewhere where you have 10 megabytes down, it really changes the way the world works for you. But anyways, this is the Gunner Technology Livestream, a weekly tech talk for non-techies and techies alike. I'm your host, Barry Merkins. With me is Cody Swan, President and CEO of Gunner Technology. Cody, how you doing?
I'm good. Yeah. Now I'm picking up the reins here. We're good on all three places.
We're all set. Okay, cool.
Done my work here.
Solid. Country Shore giveaway this week. We have a winner. It's actually Jim P. from Clearwater, Florida, who I assume is Jimmy Page, who retired to Clearwater, Florida, and is living, sort of like an anonymous life down there where people don't recognize him as the lead guitarist of Led Zeppelin. But Jimmy Page, enjoy your Country Shore hat. And make sure to sign up for the Country Shore giveaway, countryshoreoutfitters.com. On our Facebook page, Country Shore is a lifestyle brand for anyone who loves the outdoors. Also this week, we had a question of the week. Cody, do you want to cover that?
Oh, yeah. The question of the week goes in conjunction kind of with today's topic. And the question of the week for this week, which we'll be publishing later today, is have you ever been satisfied with government software? And so kind of the explainer behind that, you hear a lot of people complain about using government websites and things like that. So the question is, have you ever been satisfied with using government technology, specifically kind of online technology and software?
It's not a reigning endorsement when the question is, have you ever been satisfied? And it's also not a ringing endorsement when I actually can't think of a time when I've been satisfied with government software.
Well, that's why I was trying to think of a less, I guess, inflammatory question. It's not really inflammatory, but a less leading question. But I really couldn't pare it down, couldn't pare it back much,
Yeah, so that's good enough. I think, yeah, and I guess to that point, the question of the week this week is, what is it like working in the public sector? So that sort of, I guess, is at least a start towards what it's like working in the public sector.
Yeah, right. That's right. So, and last week's question of the week, which was, have you ever had anything patent and provisional patents count?
Oh, right. Yeah.
We had, again, we're inching a little higher. We set a new record for responses again. We keep breaking records here on this show, but 2,500 respondents, or just a shade under 2,500, and only about less than 10% said that they hold a patent or they'd ever had anything patented before, which was kind of surprising to me because patent applications are way up, especially provisional patents. But there you go. Learn something new every day.
Yeah, and if you have an idea, give us a shout. We can help you patent your idea and help you build it. Don't hesitate to build out your crazy idea because you never know. You never know what's going to take off.
All ideas matter.
Exactly. So do you want to take it away talking about the public sector, what it's like working in it? Because we're sort of in the weeds in it right now. So maybe as a starting point, sort of, I guess, go over what it's been like the past, couple of years now. We've been working in the public sector.
It's really tough, man. Because, well, for a number of reasons. The first way it's tough is actually just getting into the tech sector, or excuse me, the government sector. And when we say the government sector, we kind of mean the public sector in general, which covers federal, state, local, and higher education. And so for those who don't know, basically everything has to be bid out. There's exceptions, but everything has to be bid out in the government world or in the public sector world. And so this means there's just tons of opportunities out there that get published every day. I mean, I probably look at 20 or more opportunities, solicitations. I would say I look at 20 or more solicitations or opportunities every day, and probably I get at least 100 in my inbox every day. And the way this works is you kind of have to scan them at first and kind of filter out the ones that aren't suited for your company, and then do a deeper dive on the ones that are. And the reason that's frustrating is because a lot of times the government agency who is putting out this request for proposals or these requests for information or these requests for quotes, being an RFP, an RFI, or an RFQ respectively, they already have something in mind, something that they're almost definitely going to go with, but they're obligated to put out these solicitations because it is the public sector. So part of the really frustrating part is figuring out if the soliciting agency actually has a solution in mind already. And that's where some more acronyms come flying at you. We have commercial off the shelf, which in this realm is abbreviated as COTS, COTS. Or if the government agency wants something that is custom built, or NOTS, which means not off the shelf. Kind of the difference being is commercial off the shelf is like going to Men's Warehouse and buying a suit off the floor, whereas NOTS, or not off the shelf, is like having a suit tailored exactly for your body. And so the interesting thing is, and maybe one of the reasons why it's so hard to be quote unquote satisfied with government software, is that there is like a niche product for almost every offering you can think of. To take an example, we were looking at a solicitation for jail management system software. And so basically what this software does is manage inmates. It allows them to communicate. It's almost like in one step, a Facebook for the inmates, and also a management platform for the admins of the jail facility or the prison facility. And you would think that this is kind of a unique type of software requirement, but it's not. There are so many off-the-shelf JMSs that it was almost laughable. And the thing is when the agencies, even if they're all obviously, the only agencies that would want this software would be prison systems and jail systems and stuff like that. But
and the University of Miami for its football program,
and the University of Miami. So they're especially the University of Miami is going to have the football program is going to have specific requirements, and these, as we know, back from our days at ESPN, we evaluated a lot of commercial off-the-shelf software. What you always figure out is that you're never going to find a commercial off-the-shelf software that does exactly what you want it to do. And every single time, the vendor for the off-the-shelf software will tell you that it does, or you get the standard line, well, it doesn't do that yet, but we have this thing coming down the pipeline in just a couple weeks where that's going to be a new feature we're releasing in a couple weeks. Then you sign up and 2 years later, you still don't have that piece of functionality you wanted. Or the vendor will say something like, well, it doesn't specifically do that, but if you use this module in this way, you can get the same result. And it's kind of like what they're saying is you can put the numeral 2 on a Word document, and then the plus sign, and then the numeral 1, and then break out a calculator and do 2 + 1, and on the Word document, write the answer is 3. So like they kind of stretch the believability of what the module actually does. However, they do promise that it's going to be there. So basically, you have a situation where this agency has specific requirements where the commercial off-the-shelf vendor isn't exactly truthful, or at least forthright with what their software actually does. And if you're thinking about it, when you're thinking about the suit off the floor of Men's Warehouse, it's always going to be, number one, a better price than having a suit custom tailored to you. And number two, that software always is going to look like it has more expertise behind it. Meaning, if it's off the shelf, if there's a company who only does off the shelf jail management system, they're going to appear to have better expertise than a software company that specializes in custom software and developing custom solutions for custom problems. Like, because the first question is, have you ever developed a jail management system? Well, no, we haven't. Well, here's a company who that's all they do is develop jail management systems. Well, yes and no. They developed one jail management system, and now they're kind of jackknifing into every situation they could possibly find. So that's a real tough problem, is getting into or is finding the opportunities that aren't already earmarked for a commercial off-the-shelf solution.
And like you said, there's so much niche software out there. It's hard even getting past the first step.
Well, more so, it's tough to even know if the government agency is looking for commercial off-the-shelf software, or if they're looking for a custom solution. Because you read number one, they have a Q&A, and you can submit a question during the Q&A period. Say, do you have a solution in mind? Have you evaluated certain solutions? Are you looking for a commercial off-the-shelf solution, or are you interested in a custom solution? And the answer is always the same. We will consider both, which is the most frustrating non-answer that you can ever get, because it takes time. I'm in the middle of filling out a proposal for Texas Tech University, and it's taken me 5 hours, and I'm about halfway through it. So,
but realistically, I mean, they say they're open to both solutions, but I think experientially, it seems to be they either want off-the-shelf software or they don't know what they want, and then once they see that there's off-the-shelf software that exists, that's what they want.
Yeah. Yes, that seems to be the case. And it doesn't, and that's what's frustrating, is because they either don't know, or they're not forthcoming with what they want. And the next thing, which was kind of in line with that, is the requirement section in these is like a who's who of not just technical requirements, but experience requirements. So they will put in their RFP requirements that I can guarantee you no commercial off-the-shelf solution fits.
It's like you said, it's like internships. They want 5 years of relevant experience. And it's who has 5 years of relevant experience before they even apply for an internship?
Right. And they'll say something like it must integrate with the school's login system, which no JMS no jail management system in the world is going to integrate with the Miami Hurricanes football team login system right off the bat. And so they have these, not only these experience requirements, but functional requirements that they're being sold a bill of goods on. Number one, the experience isn't going to be there, and the features aren't going to be there either. No matter how much they say that the features are already there, they're just not going to be there. And so then again, like I said, you get a situation where commercial off-the-shelf software is jackknifed into a situation where it's doing something that it was never meant to do in the first place.
Yeah, communication seems to be the most difficult component. Getting the message across that what they imagine is an off-the-shelf solution that's just going to be able to fit perfectly with their software isn't, and that a customized solution might actually be the best way to go.
Right, and there's no, to be clear, I mentioned there's Q&A, and that's a one-way street. You have one shot at submitting questions, and then you get the answer to those questions. It's not a dialogue. You're actually forbidden from contacting these people during the bid process. So you can't just have like a back and forth. Because a lot of times we have no problem pointing people in the direction of commercial off-the-shelf software. In the private sector, we do that all the time, where people come to us and they're asking for our advice. And if they're looking for something very basic, we're going to point them to an existing solution. But if we dig down deep and we figure out the requirements really can't be met with something that's off the shelf, or there needs to be integration software written to connect two different pieces of commercial off-the-shelf software, we're more than happy to point that out. But without really having dialogue, you can never get to that discovery point where you know what they're actually looking for.
How important are relationships in the public sector, or how important do they seem to be?
Well, it's definitely a good old boy system where once you kind of get into the system, you are in the system all the way, kind of thing. Like, it's definitely a club, and the more contracts you win, the more contracts you're going to win, kind of thing. Not only from an experience angle, but because usually people who work in the government tend not to leave the government. So the network in government is pretty thick. They do a lot to prevent, what am I saying? Like outside communication. Like I said, like, you're not allowed to contact these people who are doing the contract, but it's impossible for them not to have heard about you through either research or from someone else who has worked with you in another area of the government. So it's really important, and it's definitely a blessed system, and it's one that, because they can't really talk to you, they have to look for other aspects of trust. And one of those trusts is, do they know, have they even heard of another agency that you've worked for? Like, I've seen a lot of instances where because we've done work for an agency that someone was familiar with, they didn't get like a recommendation from that agency. They just have heard of this agency, or they used to work at this agency, and they're like, oh, well, you guys have done work for this agency, so they must be good, which really isn't, it makes no sense, but that's kind of what they have to look for, because they're not allowed to contact you and have like this dialogue kind of outside very defined parameters that are set forth in the RFP.
So we've won a number of government contracts at this point. What advice would you give to people who are looking to get into public sector work?
Well, like you said, if you're setting out, and again, I'm speaking more specifically toward the technology angle, I would say, if you can, find a niche, because that is the way to go. The problem is with any niche is you're going to start limiting your opportunities, but you have a better chance of winning the opportunities that fit your niche, obviously. So the finding a niche that has a number of opportunities, and document management is a big one. CRM is a big niche that I see. There's a lot of niches that come across, and like you said, there is a niche for everything. I mean, what was that? I sent you something that I couldn't believe there was a niche for, but there is a niche for just about everything. So find a niche and make yourself a quote unquote expert in that niche, and then look for those opportunities and sign up for as many bid boards as you possibly can, because it is, especially when you're breaking in, it is a spray and pray type situation. You've got to be able to fill out as many bid opportunities as you possibly can. So you've got to get that contract vehicle with the federal government, and then you've got to get on the bid boards in the state government. And one thing that we are having success with now is these master service agreements. And so again, another acronym, by the way, if you want to be successful in government, learn all these freaking acronyms, because there are so many that you get thrown at that you just kind of have to know what they are. MSA isn't really necessarily a government term, but it stands for Master Service Agreement. And basically what this is, it's at the state and federal level, is these states will put out a contract that they'll award to multiple vendors. And it's for nothing specific. It's for a skill set. They're like, we're looking for data scientists. We're looking for software engineers. We're looking for usability experts. And the master service agreement just basically covers those skills. And if you win an MSA, then basically what you are is in their directory of people who they can give work to without any further contract, because you're basically covered under that master service agreement. And they can't just make you do something. They still have to, call you up and say, hey, we have this MSA with you, and we need a data scientist to analyze this data we have from this new project. Can you help us out? And you could say yes. And the benefit is you don't have to go through a bidding process to do that, because you're covered under the MSA. So getting those MSAs, which again, those are more service oriented. When you're getting those MSAs, those are geared more toward like the custom service based side of things, rather than the product / niche side of things. So those MSAs are really important. So look for those, and they're doozies. We got one. We're going through one now it's from the state of Hawaii, but it actually covers right now 30 states, and they're trying to get all 50 states on board. And the master service agreement is over 100 pages long. So I'm making my way through that. They're very, very dense, and they're very initially hard proposals to get out. But if you can win those MSAs, that's going to be steady opportunities for you going forward.
That's great advice. And actually, just to take it back, I think it was leadership tracking software was the niche software that we couldn't believe existed.
That's right. Some sort of, leadership tracking software. And SAP had this module
They
that,
basically did exactly what the government wanted it to do.
yeah, that's right. Or like, and this is the funny thing about very big companies. We've had experience with this because we do a lot of work with Salesforce, and so Salesforce is this giant CRM, and so Salesforce is just as, I don't want to say underhanded, but plays the game just as well as anyone else. So basically, you'll have a government bid saying, we need a CRM for real estate agents. And I'm kind of like using a contrived example because you wouldn't have real estate agents in government. But we need, oh, well, here's a better example. We need CRM for grant management, like investment tracking and all that stuff. And so Salesforce, oh yeah, we have that. We have that. And so what they basically do is they just sell them their huge, massive CRM package, but they kind of hide certain fields and add certain custom fields. And they say this is built specifically for grant management. And it's funny because Salesforce does that with a product called Property Base, which is supposedly CRM for real estate agents. And you can't see it, but it's just their normal everyday CRM, but with certain fields hidden and certain fields exposed. That's all it is.
Yeah, that's the tricky part, because you imagine they probably won a contract where they had to develop leadership software, and now they have leadership software.
That's right.
That they can then sell to any other government agency that needs it.
That's right. That's exactly right.
I'd say the only other piece of advice I think I would throw in there is just to not give up. I mean, it's sort of like anything, but what we found with the public sector is you really have to grind it out for a long time until you build up your reputation, win a couple of bids, and then it gets a little bit easier, but not even that much easier. But it's going to be a slog. I think people need to understand that this isn't something that you just jump into.
Yeah, it really is. It's not a quick win at all. And so you got to be in it for the long haul. And one thing that I think you do really well is break down the winning bids, and you kind of have to keep getting better. And it's tough because these are different agencies, and you can't automatically apply feedback from one bid to every other bid. But you really need to get a look at these winning bids and compare your own bids to the winning bids and keep improving. Keep getting on that. Keep working on perfecting the language that the government agencies want to hear. You have to speak their language.
And I guess the only other thing I'd say is I would hope companies wouldn't give up, because I think there's a lot of really good software companies, not even software, anyone who's sort of working with the government. I think there's a lot of companies out there that want to help improve the public good. Like I think there's a lot of companies that want to write really good jail management software to make that sector of public life work as efficiently and as well as it possibly can. So, I don't want to, I would hope companies wouldn't sort of abandon their ideals to once it got too hard and just let these big companies take over, because I think size leads to a lot of negative outcomes as far as a lot of these contracts and bids go. And I think people who can come in and do a really good job and innovate and come up with unique solutions to problems is probably a good thing. And it's something that the public sector needs more of. So I would hope companies wouldn't balk at the opportunity to get involved in the public sector.
Yeah, definitely agreed. Especially like you said, because the software, and again, we'll find out in our very scientific poll this week, but there is large dissatisfaction with government software, especially the public facing ones. And by the way, as you're talking, another thing that's difficult with working for the government is they have a lot of requirements that the private sector doesn't have, like the Americans with Disability Act, that they have to support. And it's just a fact.
Hundreds or millions of that, of pages devoted to just rules that they have to follow.
That's right. And so you have accessibility, which, by the way, we do anyway. But when you that's a concern, or that's a added difficulty for a lot of companies, is when they're building software, is to make it ADA compliant from a website standpoint. And usually companies just take the easy road and do the token effort, which means you're going to have a bad product. Whereas actually working those things into your product seamlessly is a lot more difficult. But then you have security, security constraints, you have, what was the other one I was thinking of? You have browser constraints. So a lot of these government agencies need to support browsers that are long outdated. And that really kills innovation, because you're talking about, if you have to support like IE9 or IE8, then you're basically cutting off at least 4 years of innovation right from the get-go. You're basically saying, well, we can't use 4 years worth of internet innovation right away, which is a big killer. So it does require a lot of work to actually produce a really good product that's capable of fitting all the government's requirements.
But it's worth the work, and we hope people stick with it. And anyone who's interested in getting involved in the public sector and the software arena, definitely get in touch with us, because we can certainly help you out with further understanding of the space. And I think actually we got a little bit of a late start, but we're going to have to end relatively on time, unfortunately. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Gunner Technology Livestream. Make sure to check out our podcast on iTunes, our blog at gunnertech.com. Look for our new technology industry ebook on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iBooks, Kobo, and anywhere else that ebooks are sold. And make sure to check out our History of JavaScript ebook too, which is out there. Sign up for the Country Store giveaway on our Facebook page and answer the question of the week this week, which, remind them once more, Cody, what's the question of the week?
Have you ever been satisfied with government software?
Have you ever been satisfied with government software? Hop on our Facebook page, answer that question, and check us out next week. It's actually going to be a different time. It'll be Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll hop on Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern, just to remind you guys, but we will do our episode next week, next Friday. So we will see you guys then. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. All right, I got to hop on this. YouTube Live is still stopping. So this is all going to be on our podcast. Wait for it. Still live. Cut the feed. Cut the feed, YouTube Live. Failed to stop broadcast. We're going to do a special episode about Google Hangout software and how amazing it is.